Pandas, believe it or not, get a lot of hate.
Pandas suck at pandaing.
There's this weird idea circulating online that pandas are these helpless creatures that don't have basic survival skills. I have no idea how this all got started. Maybe it's tied to their cute and fuzzy nature, and I can admit they kind of look like idiots. But the goal of this video is to address some of the things that people have been saying about pandas and a lot of the misconceptions. The number one thing I've heard about pandas is that pandas don't know how to have sex. This gets tossed around all the time. You hear that pandas don't know how to have sex, or that researchers in China have to create panda just to get them to actually do it. Some researchers have even reported giving male pandas sildenafil, more commonly known as Viagra. And while those last parts are true, and researchers have actually created some spicy panda content and handed out Viagra like it's candy to pandas, the idea that they're incompetent breeders isn't accurate. In general, wild pandas have no problem with sex and had a huge range in the wild, and were doing just fine before the advent of agriculture. Unfortunately, breeding them in captivity is a lot harder for a multitude of reasons. In the wild, a whole lot of male and female pandas keep the mating activity intense. It's hard to mimic the scene in the zoo. In most zoos, the male is isolated from the female and they only meet during the fateful day. Imagine being shoved into a room with someone you've never met before and didn't pick, and being expected to choose them as your mate. Basically, pandas only want to mate with other pandas they actually like, and they rarely get a chance to do that in captivity. In the wild, they have choice and competition over their mates. The BBC wrote that pandas are into threesomes or more. If you had a friend who was regularly having threesomes, you wouldn't say they're just not that into doing it. In George Schaller's book, The Giant Pandas of Wolong, he reported the first wild panda breeding ever documented, and I'll quote him here. In just over 3 hours, the large male mated with Zhenzhen at least 48 times, roughly once every 3 minutes. That doesn't sound very incompetent to me. The second thing people say about pandas is that they're dying out because they only eat bamboo. And while it's true, bamboo has basically no nutritional qualities, this isn't a problem for them because they live in areas where bamboo is plentiful. In fact, they eat between 24 and 85 pounds of bamboo per day. In Gizmodo's article, Should We Just Let Pandas Die Off Already?, they raise this as one of their counterpoints against pandas. These idiots just eat bamboo all day. There's hardly any nutrients in it. Gizmodo likened it to if you decide to chew on styrofoam for 90% of your waking hours. But this is a terrible analogy because pandas have evolved to digest bamboo. This isn't a unique or new animal strategy. Consuming large amounts of low nutrient but easily available food is a strategy used by plenty of people I personally know, but also horses, whales, deer, rabbits, koalas, giraffes. Eating tons of easily available food isn't a bad strategy for survival, and it had been working just fine until humans came along. This leads nicely into my next point, which is that pandas probably would have died out on their own. This one is surprisingly common. A quick Google search of "should pandas" shows the second result is "be extinct," the third is "exist," and the fifth is "be saved." There is some serious victim blaming going on here with the whole panda situation. Search on YouTube and these videos come up. The Guardian, Minute Earth, Seeker, ABC News are all putting the blame squarely on the panda. These poor dumb pandas. If it wasn't for us, they'd be extinct already. In fact, this must be why they're endangered. And it's easy to see how these previous misconceptions tie into this one. They're too stupid to breed and they just eat styrofoam all day. It's a miracle they made it this far. Most researchers would say the reason they were endangered, they aren't as of 2023, is because of human destruction of their habitat. Agriculture has resulted in clear cutting of bamboo forests, which is where pandas live. It's uncomfortable to blame the decline of such a cute species solely on humans, and I get it. It makes us feel a lot better if pandas were an evolutionary mistake that somehow scraped by for this long. We all get enough bad news and we regularly hear about how we're destroying the planet. Surely pandas dying isn't our fault too. Well, sadly it is, according to every wildlife researcher who's studied them. The good news is that rehabilitation efforts have been more effective, and laws against harming pandas in their habitats have been in place since at least 1987. According to Pandas International, the World Wildlife Fund, whose logo is a panda, these laws have been effective in helping wild pandas hold on to the habitat they have left. This leads nicely to my next panda idea I've heard, which is more of an opinion than a misconception, but I'd like to address it anyway. Pandas aren't worth protecting. There's a small contingent of hot take naturalists and wildlife experts who already know all of the 3 previous points I've said, but still say that pandas shouldn't be protected. They claim we spend too much money on them when other species aren't getting the protection they deserve. It's unfair that we're most willing to save species we find adorable. I'd agree with them that it is unfair. Ugly animals that are endangered deserve protection too, but the reality of the situation is people are more willing to donate money to protect animals that are aesthetically pleasing than animals that aren't. It's no coincidence that the World Wildlife Fund's logo is a panda and not an eye. And yes, this was the cutest photo of one I could find. The solution isn't giving up on protecting pandas. The solution is using people's natural desire to want to help cute animals to also help less cute animals. As much as it's unfair that pandas get special treatment because of their looks, it would be equally unfair to deny them protection just because they're cute. There's a give and take here, and we have to use human psychology for the benefit of the planet instead of eschewing it. While I was doing research, I found this one quote that I just had to include because of how weird it was. British naturalist Chris Packham, this guy, the vegan ambassador for Veganuary, said that we should let pandas die out, and is quoted as saying, "I would eat the last panda if I could have the money we've spent on panda conservation back on the table for me to do more sensible things with." I don't know what personal beef this guy has with pandas. Clearly a panda in his past did him wrong, but after reading that, I just had to take a step back and reevaluate things. This is a guy who has spent his entire life documenting the natural world and fighting to protect it. He's the president of the Hawk Conservancy Trust, the Bat Conservation Trust, the Hampshire Ornithological Society, and the British Trust for Ornithology, and the Southampton Natural History Society. And he's saying he'd eat the last panda. To be clear, I'm not trying to direct any hate towards Chris Packham. He has Asperger's, and although he hasn't taken back his comments, he has since apologized for upsetting people.